Thank you. Item 28, Council's response to the 15th of March 2019. Now, Mary, you're presenting this, so over to you. Thank you very much.
So this report is just the report that Council requested at the meeting on the 11th of April, when the Council, and particularly Councillor Johansson, asked for a detailed report about what we'd done during the response. So this report just outlines that response. You will note on page 23 we talk about the work that's followed, and as the CE said in her report, I can quickly talk to that report as well. But before I do go on and talk about what's happening next, I do just want to mention the significant contribution by over 280 staff in the response over those 2 weeks. And you will see by the massive amount of activities and the role Council played, largely and often behind the scenes, in organising the burials, the call for prayers, the remembrance service, the traffic management, etc., etc. So a huge amount of work from a large number of staff. Also want to acknowledge the police, and Ngāi Tahu as partners and other agencies, but also importantly I want to acknowledge the civic leaders. So that's the Mayor and yourself as councillors, and what you did during the response, and the tone that you set about this response, about reinforcing the views of unity and compassion, and that flavour that you set as civic leaders really, I think, just did set the tone for the response which staff followed and the rest of the city followed. So really want to acknowledge that, and also acknowledge the Muslim community who suffered the incredible loss but behaved with and responded with such dignity and grace. So that's probably all I need to say about the report. I will hand round this summary, which is just an overview about the steps that are now happening. So a multi-agency group has got together and is leading the response into this next phase, and they have 10 streams of work that are happening and being coordinated across government departments. So perhaps if I just table this, because I know time is tight, and we take some time to brief you about it on a Tuesday morning is probably the best, rather than taking time now. Yep,
that's perfect, and that'll give us time to digest this, and then take time in a less formal situation for a briefing, which I think will be incredibly valuable.
You will also get a newsletter out. Di's team has been religiously sending you out weekly updates, and you'll get another one this week as well.
Thank you. Okay, so Tim, you're happy to move. Phil, you're happy to second. We've got some questions. So Jimmy, we've got a question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mary, for your comprehensive information. Thank you also for the staff, 280 the staff, great contribution. But I have 2 questions. First one, we undertake this kind of response to the most attack one. But I just want to know what is our guiding document or process we follow, whether we follow currently civic defense, the emergency, the kind of management, the document or process, or we have any other guiding document we can follow. Then probably we can integrate all those resources, not waste, maybe some resources or maybe some of the different agencies to be ignored, etc. So I just want to know, this is my first question. Also, even in our council, internal council, I still would like to know what is the mayor's role, what is the council's role, what is the community role, what is the management staff role. If we can distinguish more clearly, we can more working together closely, collaboratively. We can more integrate our resources. This is my first question.
Okay, so just in response to that question, in this incident, the civil defence emergency was not called. So this was an operation that was led by the police. So it was a police-led operation, and they led the operations and they tasked out tasks to other agencies.
Okay.
Within council, we set up an incident management team,
Yes.
and that responded and did the things that we were tasked to do, or the things that we initiated and did ourselves. I can certainly send you out a diagram about how that works and the guidelines of how we run that. So, and also potentially how in future we will run, even if it's an EOC, how we will also be setting up a parallel incident management team in our organisation.
Okay.
We can also do some clarity around the roles of elected members, and we'll get our civil defence and our IMT team at some briefing to clarify those.
Okay, thank you. Second question, okay. And your particular regarding key point 1.2, emphasize report is not review or lesson learned report. So I just want to know when we can get this kind of review or learn report. Then we can, improve our dealing with this kind of, the event, even in case, in the future, unfortunately happen again. But we need to prevent from this one.
Yep. So that work is going to be done by University of Canterbury on behalf of the multi-agencies that were involved in this response. So that work is going, because it was a police-led response, so police will be doing their own investigation, but across the agencies, from DHB, police, MSD, us, UC will be doing a review of the lessons learned. It will probably take some time. It won't be a rapid review, but we can definitely make sure councillors can feed into that review as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Dion.
On the funding coordination thing, obviously there's a little bit of anxiety out, and we're seeing it through the media anyway, some anxiety around the funds and families and some issues there. I just want to be really, really clear in this document that you've given us here. You've got, Christchurch City Council is in this, the funding coordination part. I just want to be very clear what the City Council's involved in regards to the funding coordination.
So there's different funding streams that are available. So there's the victim support funding, and Department of Internal Affairs, MSD and Victim Support have been working very closely to make sure that there's a clear and quick and transparent process for victim support money. So they are working on that to try and speed up that process and get that money distributed. There's also other streams of money that are available from new government and philanthropic grant money, and the FLAG group, which is a inter-funders group, is working to make sure that funding is coordinated. Christchurch City Council will be particularly interested in how the foundation's funds are going to be distributed, and we will be having some discussions with the foundation, and may ask the foundation people to brief the councillors in a briefing as well, just to make sure it's the particular priorities at the moment are making sure those two donor funds get out, which is the victim support one and the foundation one. The foundation one was more medium to longer term funding, where the victim support was the immediate funding that needs to get out to families.
And that's and you're not worried about that being there's too much. Well, sorry, I'll say it again. Is that going to be coordinated relatively quickly? It's obviously, I'm just worried about some longer term perceptions on these things.
Yeah, absolutely. So victim support, my understanding is victim support are working to try and get their money out very quickly, within the next month. So that is not, that's not something that government council can direct or anything. We are encouraging them to get their money, and they are keen to get the money out quickly. It has been a concern to lots of people, I think, about getting funds, funds out.
I want to be very clear what our role is in that, because there is some things there. Anyway, thank you.
Pauline.
These funding streams be appropriate for the Multicultural Centre?
That's probably a discussion that you'd want to have with the foundation.
So how would that be initiated?
I was saying we'll discuss with the foundation about having a discussion or briefing with the council. So I am meeting with the foundation CE later this week to actually find out. Then we'll try and work out a way. And you have two representatives on the foundation as well.
Right, so is that already in discussion?
To try and get a discussion.
And there's also a submission to the annual plan that might give rise to a need for some discussions with the foundation or others as well. All right, so you're obviously having that meeting outside of any elected member process, but you'd be reporting back on that, obviously.
And also just trying to potentially work out a time that they could discuss. It could be discussed with elected members.
Yep, great. Vicky.
Thank you very much indeed for the report, Mary, and for all the work that you did, because you just worked tirelessly on this, and you forgot to mention that. As usual. I love the way that you actually included the staff names. I think that's really, really important. I agree with you completely that the Muslim community in Christchurch were just completely inspirational in terms of their response, just completely humbling as well. Just the question I have, two questions. Who do we actually contact if we're dealing with families in need? Is there a contact point that we should make contact with?
Yes, there is, and we will make sure that goes out in the newsletter that's coming out on Friday.
Great.
So if there's one contact if you're working with the Muslim community that were directly affected, and there's another area where other more broadly people will be connected, so we'll make sure those are put in.
That would be awesome, including businesses that have been particularly affected would be really helpful.
And we do, I know that Councillor Henson had some concerns about this, but we do know that IRD have visited each of those businesses, as have MB and MSD, and he has a email and a contact detail for that. But if there's other businesses, the Chamber is working with some local businesses.
Just who we contact would be
so
really,
we'll put
really
that
helpful.
in the newsletter, in the update as
and
well.
Then longer term, just looking at the beyond the immediate need and the curiosity that's been created around particular faiths in the Christchurch area, and the desire of people to understand and know those. Is there a way, and I'm happy to help do some of the work, and I could find the people who would be happy to teach it, but is there a way that we could perhaps make that available through the library, or some way in which that curiosity could be helped, so that we understand the essence of particular faiths, which people may not understand, just to enhance that capacity for people to...
So we, and that's out of that work stream that's about city unity. A lot of that is going to flow. So that's a great idea. So we'll keep you looped in on that.
If you could, that would be really cool, because I've got people who are quite keen to help on it.
Intel research is saying the key thing is about that social capital. When people know each other, they don't hurt each other.
I'm just really keen to get it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Phil.
Mary.
Thanks, Mary, and certainly I would reiterate what Vicky has said in thanking you and staff. And you also mentioned how, in fact, we have had some regular communications, so and we have appreciated that too. So you can let our comms know that. But I just wanted to ask you the section on strengthening communities, because the submissions, for example, on having a large multicultural centre, they've been absolutely clear. But I'm just thinking in terms of our ongoing council involvement, because this part will be led by us, is that something which in time could come back to us as a council, or maybe as a committee, to ensure that not only is there a central base for people of all cultures, but in fact in our suburbs and in our communities and in our libraries, that in fact we are able to support people of other ethnicities.
Great, and Gary is leading that work, so he's hearing that and nodding, so yes, great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So we've got a recommendation simply to receive this report, which I'm happy to move, and Dion, you're happy to second? Is it, were you signalling you were happy to second? Yeah, no, I'm happy to ask to speak. Yep, all right, great. So now speak to it, great.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the report, and I wanted to reiterate some of the words that were said before. It's really good to see the names of all of the staff involved. It puts a human face to what we've actually experienced, and I really want to sort of thank especially yourself, Mary, Claire, and Gary. I was about to say Craig for some reason. It has been a long day. Names are not my forte, but I really want to say thank you to you three who have been at the front of this from a staff point of view as well, and I'm.
Andrew.
Oh, and Andrew.
Andrew did all the burials.
Absolutely. Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, that's the danger of naming people. But I could keep going, and I should have just got the list and started naming everybody. But there has been some amazing work going on, and I really just wanted to say thank you from my point of view, because I was down on the ground seeing a lot of stuff as well. But Gary and Claire especially were just running around day and night, and I was, it's incredible work, and you're still doing some incredible work, and there's a long way to go for support of both the communities that were immediately affected, but also the wider city as well. So this is the start, I suppose, of a new sort of phase, but we've got to really hold on to what we've done and be proud of ourselves and move forward with what we've got. So thanks.
Thank you. Anne.
I was in the unenviable position of having to travel away overseas very soon after this, and it was clear that from what we saw and what we read while we were overseas in the States, that Christchurch and New Zealand were writing the rule book in terms of how to respond to a situation like this, and I was just enormously proud of what I read in the papers and what I saw. And when I look at the principles that you've listed there in the report, I think that they were being acted out. They were evident that those principles were underlying everything that was happening here. So well done, thank you. It would be great if we could perhaps highlight those principles in some way and keep them sort of front of mind as we go forward, because they are excellent. Yes, we could somehow, just to, it's sort of almost like the anchor that's holding us going forward. So, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I certainly would echo the comments that have been made around recognition of the work that staff did. And yeah, I mean, certainly naming people is a great way of recognising the work that people did. As has already been alluded to, naming people inevitably means that there are other people that did things that are not named, and it's always dangerous. But the contribution, as has been said, by over 280 staff is significant. And realising that this happened at a time when people individually were deeply affected by what had happened, that shocked the whole of the city and that affected different individuals in very different ways. So 280 of our own staff who were directly involved in this, but realising also that for each of those 280 people, there were other things that those people normally would have been doing, other roles that they normally would have been performing, business as usual work that would have needed to be covered or backfilled or handled by other people. So the people that were involved is far greater than the people that have been named in this report or in our discussions today, and we absolutely acknowledge the work that was done in trying and difficult situations, and no doubt when people were personally quite deeply affected by what had happened here. I'd also take the opportunity to acknowledge the leadership that the Mayor and colleagues showed at this time as well. And it was a very dynamic situation, but in terms of a wide range of work that was done in terms of the need for visible city leadership at that time. A huge amount of work was done across a very wide area, and some of it in a very dynamic situation that had huge value, particularly to those people most deeply affected by this, but also of value in terms of the community response. And showing leadership from a city point of view at a time when that community response has been recognised as quite unique and of real interest in terms of a different way of dealing with this than perhaps might have been expected. And that recognition is not only around New Zealand, but is reflected in interest that's come from overseas and has been expressed by a number of international delegations and international visitors who have come to bring condolences, but also come very interested in the particular way that Christchurch has responded to this and what learnings there might be from that may in fact have international application. So yeah, I think, Mary, thank you very much indeed for the report. I think it's timely for us to look back on what's happened over these last few weeks, but it's also timely, and a number of questions have alluded to it, for us to start to look forward as to how we might best deal with any outstanding issues, and realising that there are people that are likely to be deeply affected by this for a very long time. There'll be some that are, you know, most deeply affected who will always be affected by this, but also realising that there are some opportunities for legacy that we want to capture, and the sort of educational opportunities that Vicky mentioned, and some other positives that can come out of this as well. So thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you for the work that you're planning. And yeah, we certainly look forward to being actively engaged in the process as we go forward from here. Thank you very much. So I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against?